Years ago, I once had the profound idea of coming to Finland, and if at all possible, completely incognito, not only to truly get to know the country, but above all else, to actively take part in 5 truly great Olympic festivals, which, as I firmly believed, were to take place in. A few years earlier, I had admired the Finnish fighters in Berlin, and beyond that, was familiar with their struggles for freedom. From the time of the World War and its conclusion, I also knew the name of... No, by no means would I ever have dreamed that fate would one day bring me to Finland under these circumstances. The war in which we now stand together was neither anticipated by Germany nor, I can say this quite openly, prepared for. If we had considered this war a possibility, then the preparations would have been more thorough, better, more practical, and more appropriate. We perhaps genuinely believed in the distinct possibility of a widespread and devastating conflict erupting across the European continent, particularly if certain influential states adamantly intended to perpetuate the stringent and often contentious terms of the Treaty of Versailles. But I had a strong hope that even here it would be possible, simply through the power of reason and the realization that impossible conditions must remain impossible, that it would be possible to bring about more peaceful prospects. I had set out a very ambitious social program. I myself rose from very difficult beginnings among my people, and I had no other goal in life than to implement a very ambitious social program and also a major complementary cultural program. I dedicated myself to these tasks. But I may say most fortunately, Providence has indeed determined otherwise. And when the absolute necessity truly arose to take up arms for the freedom and liberation of my own beloved people, I was profoundly glad that Providence had specifically chosen me to undertake this significant and crucial step. It was only the development of the political situation since June 1940 that made it possible to consider the evidently looming threat from the German side and to make decisions in this regard, decisions that were binding. It was from this decision that the step was taken, and not only do I not regret having taken it, but today I am infinitely happy to have done so. For it was only the struggle that now lies behind us and still lies ahead of us that revealed the greater danger in which not only we, but all of Europe was suspended. Perhaps if I had previously had any inkling of the extent of Bolshevism's preparations against Europe, the decision would have been harder for me to make. I certainly would have made the decision because I count myself among those men who do not wish to evade a danger that is inevitable or whose coming is inevitable, but who instead prefer to confront it head-on from the outset and to take upon themselves any hardship and any worry. Today, now that I fully comprehend and truly know how infinitely great and truly immense this inherent danger was, I am therefore all the more profoundly grateful that a benevolent Providence, with its guiding hand, allowed me to find within myself the necessary inner strength and the crucial, clear insight to make this momentous and pivotal decision. This decision has now, for the second time in our history, brought the German and Finnish peoples together in a struggle against the same adversary. Even the very first joint struggle, a truly significant and pivotal undertaking in which today's esteemed celebrant first put his great and remarkable personality at the dedicated service of the entire Finnish people. Even this initial and foundational struggle created enduring and unbreakable bonds that were destined to be lasting and permanent. The second struggle, I am convinced, will strengthen these bonds for all time, for we cannot avoid one realization. No matter how victory comes, and there can be no peace without victory, there will be only one victory, regardless of what form that victory takes. The danger in the East, of course, will still remain lurking somewhere. And I therefore believe that, looking far into the future, a whole number of European peoples share a common interest in always keeping a watchful eye on this danger, to look forward to it and, if necessary, to confront it with a vigilant mind. Now, through fate, providence, and destiny, I have been appointed not only as the leader of the German people, but also as the supreme commander of the German Wehrmacht. In this capacity, I am now pleased to offer my congratulations to the Marshal of Finland today. Not only on my own personal behalf, but above all, and with profound respect, on behalf of all the brave German soldiers who consistently look upon their courageous Finnish comrades with genuine and deep admiration, recognizing their unwavering spirit and dedication. It is so easy for us to speak of friendship with the Finnish army when we have such brave allies, when we know such a courageous people stand by our side. Today, I may also speak on behalf of the entire German people, for we too now have a people's army, and the German Reich is a people's state. Army, armed forces, and people are one and the same for us. At this very moment, the entire German people think exactly as I am speaking here. They deeply admire the courageous Finnish soldiers, they profoundly admire the resilient Finnish people, and they also greatly admire the brilliant and strategic commander, recognizing his exceptional leadership and tactical prowess. On your 75th birthday, I can only extend to you, sir, the heartfelt congratulations of the entire German people, its armed forces, and my own. Allow me to add my thanks for the hospitality that I and my gentlemen have enjoyed here. And finally, let me add just one wish, that you may remain for many, many years to come for your own homeland, your people, but also for us and our common cause.
Mr. Reich Chancellor and Supreme Commander of the German Wehrmacht, for the extremely gracious congratulations, I would like to express my respectful thanks. These profound and heartfelt wishes are, for me personally and for the entire esteemed Finnish armed forces, the greatest and most distinguished honor imaginable, a truly remarkable recognition which my heart and my mind fully and deeply appreciate with immense gratitude and profound respect. I also sincerely thank you with great appreciation for the truly beautiful honorary gifts that have been personally dedicated to me. These gifts will be a lasting memento for me, a reminder of today's hard struggle for the highest values of spiritual and material culture. A struggle that we are privileged to fight alongside the glorious and powerful German Wehrmacht. The profound significance and immense value of the distinguished honor that has been graciously bestowed upon me is indeed greatly and considerably elevated by the esteemed presence of the Reich Chancellor, who is here among us today, gracing this important occasion with his attendance. The fact that the Supreme Commander of the German Wehrmacht himself wished to personally convey these congratulations and deeds brings not only the greatest joy to me and to all of us, but is also an honor that we deeply feel. I especially value the fact that you, Herr Reich Chancellor, found the opportunity to make this journey, particularly in these days when the powerful and brilliant blows of German leadership, the hearts of German men, and German arms are bringing us closer to the hope of a far-reaching decision. So I would like to conclude the expression of my respectful gratitude with the wish that, in the course of this year, the good weapons of the just cause may be granted the opportunity to render harmless the stronghold of Bolshevik barbarism. May the fighters, united in brotherhood of arms, bring peace to their peoples and deliver all of Europe from a danger that has loomed like a nightmare over the eastern borders for more than 2 decades. Well, that's good. A very great and significant danger, perhaps the gravest one of all. We have, in fact, analyzed the present situation quite well. We ourselves didn't really know exactly how formidable these states in the East were. During the Winter War, we would never have guessed that. Of course, we had the impression that they were well armed, but not to the extent they actually are. And now there is no doubt at all about what they had in their arsenal. Absolutely clear.
They possess the most immense and formidable armament imaginable. If someone had told me that a country could field 35,000 tanks, I would have said, "You're insane."
35,000?
35,000 tanks. At the moment, we have over 34,000 tanks on the list. And if one of my generals had told me that there were 35,000 tanks in this country, I would have said, "Sir, you must be seeing double or tenfold. That's madness. You're seeing ghosts." We never thought that was possible. We found factories, just one, for example, Kramatorskaya. 2 years ago, there was just a tree there. We had no idea. Today, there is a tank factory there that employs just over 30,000 workers on the first shift and more than 60,000 at full capacity, and that's just a single tank factory. We occupied it. An enormous factory, masses of workers, all from the Donetsk region.
Yes, when you think that for 20 long years, over 20 years, indeed 25 full years, they had complete freedom to arm themselves and spent absolutely everything, every single resource on armaments. Only armaments.
Yes. I said earlier to the President, I truly hadn't fully realized this before. If I had known this crucial information, it would have weighed even more heavily and profoundly on my heart and my conscience, but I would have made the definitive decision all the more resolutely, because there really was absolutely no other viable option available to me at that particular time. I was already fully aware, it was already deeply ingrained in the back of my mind, that I would absolutely have to do it now. I just had the incredible old luck measured against the devastating Second World War. That would have been incredibly useful too. We see that more clearly today than we perhaps recognized back then. That would have been useful to us. My whole plan actually was that in the fall of '39, I still wanted to carry out the Western campaign. Only this constant bad weather we had. That prevented us from doing so. And all our armament was, well, it's fair weather armament. It's very capable, it's good, but unfortunately, it's fair weather armament. We've seen that here in this war as well. All our weapons are, of course, tailored for the West. And we were all convinced, that was simply our opinion, I mean, from the earliest times, that you can't wage war in winter. And we also, the German tanks and the German vehicles, they weren't tested to prepare them for winter warfare, but rather test drives were conducted to prove that you can't wage war in winter. It was a different starting point. In the autumn of 1939, we were always faced with the question. I wanted to attack from the old position, and I was convinced that I could finish with France in 6 weeks. But the question was whether one could actually move. And it was constantly rainy weather, and now I know this French region very well myself, and even I could not ignore the opinions of many of my generals that we probably would not be able to muster that momentum, that we would not be able to make use of the tank forces, that we also would not be able to make use of the Air Force with the training airfields due to the rain. I know the northern edge myself. I was a soldier there for 4 years and 2 months during the Great War, and that's how this delay came about. If I had settled it in 1939, then world history would have taken a different course. So I had to wait until 1940, and unfortunately it wasn't until May. May 10th was the first nice day. On May 8th we made a move, and on May 10th we launched the attack. And then, well, this truly immense and significant redeployment of our numerous divisions from the Western Front to the Eastern Front had to be meticulously carried out, a monumental undertaking. The initial occupation in Norway had this task. At the same moment, well, actually I suppose one can say it today, a great misfortune befell us. Namely, the weaknesses that had arisen in Italy, first due to the North African situation, and second due to the situation in Greece, a very great misfortune. We now had to help. For us, this meant, all at once, a splitting up of our Air Force and a splitting up of our armored divisions. While we were just in the process of preparing the armored divisions here for deployment, we suddenly had to give up 2 divisions, 2 complete divisions, which then became a third, and constantly make up for very heavy losses there. After all, there were bloody battles that were fought in the desert. All of that, of course, was later missing from our positions, and not everything was possible. The decision, which was unyielding, I had a conversation back then with Molotov. I mean, it was absolutely clear. Molotov left with the determination to start the war, and I let him go, determined not to get ahead of him if possible. That was one of because the demands that man made were clearly aimed in the end at dominating Europe. That was already in the autumn of the year 1940 for us constantly the pressing question, should we allow it to come to a complete break or not? At that time, I always advised the Finnish government to negotiate and to buy time and to handle the matter in a dilatory way, because I was always afraid that Russia would suddenly invade Romania in late autumn and seize the oil fields. And we wouldn't have been ready yet in late autumn 1940. If Russia had occupied the Romanian oil fields, then Germany would have been lost. That wouldn't have required much. With 60 Russian divisions, the matter could have been settled. At that time, we still didn't have any troops in Romania. The Romanian government later turned to us, and what we had there would have been laughable. All they needed to do was occupy the oil fields. In September and October, I could no longer start a war with our weapons. That was simply impossible. We also, of course, hadn't prepared the deployment in the East in any way to that extent. The units in the West also first had to be consolidated again. The armaments had to be put in order first, because after all, we had also suffered losses in our Western campaign. It would have been impossible to set out before the spring of 1941. And if the Russians had occupied Romania in the autumn of 1940 and taken control of the oil fields, then in 1941 we would have been helpless. We have a large German production, but what the Air Force alone consumes, what our tank divisions consume, that is truly something enormous. It is a consumption that goes beyond all imagination, and without the supply of at least 4 to 5 million tons of Romanian petroleum, we would not be able to wage the war. I had to leave them alone for the time being, and that was something I was very worried about. That's why I was determined to use negotiations to get through this period until we were strong enough to stand up to these extortionate demands, because the demands were simply outright extortion. They were acts of extortion. But the Russians knew that we couldn't help ourselves, that we were tied to the West. They could extort anything from us. And it was only during Molotov's visit that I briefly explained to him that the conditions, these demands, that we would not accept them. With that, the negotiations changed completely and abruptly. What to do next? There were 4 points, one of which concerned Finland, the right to protect itself from Finnish threats. Then he told me, quite matter-of-factly, that Finland was threatening them. But in Finland, action would be taken against the enemies of the Soviet Union. Then it was said that those groups would continue to be pursued, and that a great power could not allow its existence to be threatened by a small state. So I said, your existence is not threatened by Finland at all. Then he said, don't tell me that your existence is threatened by Finland. Yes, there is also a moral threat to the existence of a great power, and what Finland is doing constitutes a moral threat, a threat to moral existence, against... Then I told him that we could no longer remain passive spectators in the event of another war in the Baltic Sea. He asked me what our position in Romania was. After all, we had given a guarantee, and he wanted to know whether that guarantee also applied against Russia. So I said, I don't think it is directed against you, since you surely have no intention of invading Romania. Then he said, we have never heard that you intend to invade Romania, because you have always said that Bessarabia belongs to you, but you have never declared that you want to invade Romania. He said he wanted to know precisely whether this guarantee